adventure and intrigue. Fighting monsters out of our league. We'll roll the dice and pray they're nice. A +2 and I might succeed. Hey everyone, well, it's Carl with Tabletop Tango, and I was thinking the other day, I'm creating a new campaign. I've got a lot of ideas and a lot of great things for adventures. But what happens when I get writer's block? What happens when you just can't think about what the right adventure would be? What's a hook? What should I do? And I'm in the middle of the campaign and it's really starting to get tough. So I wanted to talk a little bit today about some techniques that you can use to maybe try to get out of that funk. And obviously, writer's block's been around ever since writing existed, and so some of these might sound familiar. Some of these have a kind of an RPG slant to them, and some of the things that I do when I kind of get into a rut and I can't figure out what I'm going to do. So let's go ahead and start out. First thing is work on something else. They say that take a shower, take a walk, do something. What I think I do is when I've got problems with an adventure, I go do something else. I work on my world building, and sometimes that leads to an idea, or I work on NPCs, I start fleshing them out. So it's still game related. I still get a chance to flex that creative muscle, and then sometimes adventures come to me, but it gives me a chance to keep my mind working on something else and not worrying about that adventure that I just can't figure out. Let's talk about number 2. Brainstorm. Now, brainstorming is a classic technique. There's many ways of doing it. You can use sticky notes, you can use mind maps. They do it in corporate America all the time. But the fundamental of brainstorm is really put down any or all ideas you can think of. Just whatever pops into your head, you get it down, and you don't spend any time doing a value judgment. You don't flesh them out, you don't think about them, you just get them down. And so you throw them out, throw them out, throw them out, throw them out. And I use that a lot of times when I'm building my campaign to start with, because I'll just bullet out these different ideas and then I'll look at how they might all work together. So take advantage of brainstorming as a technique, and it'll help you kind of just get things out of your head without thinking about whether they make sense or not. Next one is the idea of use crazy ideas. It's the crazy idea technique. Sometimes they call it the crazy eights, whatever. But the whole point is you come up with an idea for an adventure that's the absolute worst idea you can ever think of, or a number of those ideas. And what that does is it starts your kind of juices flowing in a way that you're trying to come up with the perfect adventure that works with your plot, that's works in the arc has all the sorts of things that you're working on with respect to players and character building and all that sort of thing. If you go with the stupid ideas and you just throw out, well, what if this necromancer that I've got this huge arc, what if he's the mayor and he's been the mayor all the time? Well, that's a dumb idea. It's not really wanted, but what it did is get you to start thinking about different ways of approaching the problem. So come up with some crazy ideas that make no sense at all, but they got the juices flowing, and then maybe that gets you to start going, okay, well, that doesn't make sense, but that leads to something that kind of does maybe make sense, and that leads to something that is just a great idea, ultimately. Then one of the techniques that sometimes they talk about is talk it out. So if you've got a friend or even an imaginary friend, you start talking through, hey, here's where I'm having struggles. I have this antagonist, and I know he's in the castle, but I don't know how the players should get to the castle, and I don't know if they should do this, and I don't. You're talking it out with somebody else, and sometimes they'll give you a perspective you just don't have. Even if you're talking to an imaginary friend, that gives you a different perspective, because now you have to answer yourself as somebody who's outside of the process looking in. And they'll ask you questions, and I do this with my wife all the time. I've got a cool campaign idea, and she doesn't game, and I'm at a block, so I come in and go, hey, you know what? I'm looking at my players in the Cyberpunk game. They're going to be going after a big corporation, and I just can't figure out what's the corporation do, and why are they doing it, and why would the big corporation want to try this? And she'd say, oh, well, what if they're just like this? Because I saw that on a TV show, and what about this? And I go, wow, that makes a lot of sense. And I just really didn't think of it because I didn't have anyone to bounce the concept off. And so that's another great technique to use. Another thing that's pretty useful is word association. So I use this for lyrics a lot in my songs, but it also makes sense for when you're writing. Just grab words that mean something for what you're trying to do. So castle, moat, let me think, dragon, and just get those words out. So it's kind of like brainstorming, but it's just a word. And you start associating those words with pieces that come together. And for lyrics, it's I associate those words now with phrases that lead to that word. For adventure, it's like these words, well, okay, they start, well, oh, that means that might be an NPC trait. And if that's an NPC, oh, maybe, oh, that's what they're, it can lead to sort of building upon the words. So it's a word association kind of game. Next thing is try to play off of your player character's backstories. You've probably forgotten about them. You've got a whole bunch of content that your players have given you. You probably forgot about them. Dive in. They're like just waiting for you to take advantage of these things. And maybe it's a hook that's just enough for you to get moving, but maybe it's not enough. And then suddenly you use the other techniques. Let's brainstorm ideas on how to use this little hook that my players have given me in their backstories. So take advantage of backstories. I think we talk about that all the time as game masters, that you really should take advantage of what the players give you, whether it's a new adventure hook because they're going in a certain direction or their backstory, but sometimes we just forget about them. You've got this story you're trying to tell, and you forgot that the players have stories that they'd like you to tell. That's a good chance to pull that in and start using that, especially if you've got brain lock and you just can't get past the vapor lock you're in. And then the last one, or not the last one, but another one is there's a lot of people who do adventure generators. I play a lot of Savage Worlds, obviously, and lots of the settings have adventure generators where you roll some dice, they give you some phrases, and then you take those phrases, and the idea is you take the phrase and you build upon that. And so what it does is it gives you a constraint to work within. So you're rolling a die and it says, oh, it's a corporation, it's a corporation. What? They want to steal something. And it works you through sort of this list of items. And it's almost like word association in the sense that you now have this constraint that you can start building against. And sometimes, I don't know if you find this, but sometimes if you've got a box to build in, you can get very creative, but it's not like a green field. It's not like I got a blank piece of paper and I'm just scratching my head to say, where do I start? Now you've got the box, and you can go anywhere in that box, and there's infinite possibilities within the box, but now you've got some structure that you can go against. And there's books written on adventure generators. There's, websites all dedicated to it. If you're playing Savage Worlds or something that has settings, well, the settings probably have adventure generators as part of them. So take advantage of that. Use that to get the creative juices flowing. And then the last one that I do a lot is I don't try to start from the beginning and then get to the end. I start with what's the thing the players should accomplish. I want them to discover that this Android factory is creating evil AIs. Now I've got something, and I might have gotten that idea by brainstorming. Oh, there's AIs. What if they're evil? What if there's robots? Oh, what if the robots are evil? And that got me to kind of that nugget. But that's the important part. It's not how did I get there? That I can back into. But if you spend your time saying, well, I got to start writing an adventure. Where do the players start? Where do they go next? You're having a hard time visualizing the end goal. So get to the end and then back your way back into what you want the players to accomplish. So what was that? 8. So work on something else, take a walk, use brainstorming techniques. Corporations have been doing that for a long time. Try the crazy idea technique where you just come up with something nuts and you see where it goes. Talk to an imaginary friend, talk to a friend or an imaginary friend and just bounce ideas off them and see what they say. Do some word association. Try to play off your player characters' backstories or the players' backstories that they have for their characters and see what comes from that. Maybe that's the break I talked about, work on something else, take your brain. Maybe that's the break you need from your story arc is just picking something from the player's backstory and just building a quick adventure from that. Leverage those adventure generators that are out there on the web or available through settings just to see if you get yourself a box to play within. And then last,
don't start at the beginning. Start at where you're trying to accomplish what you're trying to do, and then back your way into the final adventure. So anyway, those were some things, because I get vapor locked all the time when I'm trying to do adventures, because I also do low prep. And so, I have to find an adventure and kind of build it up really fast because I don't have a ton of time to just scratch my head. And so I need to use these techniques to get kind of over the hump and get something going. And my favorites are brainstorming, doing the crazy idea, bouncing ideas, obviously using player backstories, but just those are some of the ones I like to use the most, and they really help me be successful, I think. I hope my players think I'm successful. So anyway, I'm Carl with Tabletop Tango. I'd love you to do a like and subscribe, ring the bell, whatever. It'd just be cool to have get some subscribers out there. That'd be fun. So anyway, Carl, Tabletop Tango. Hope you enjoyed it. We will see you next time.
Fighting monsters out of our league. We'll roll the dice and pray they're nice. A +2 and I might succeed. Whether Cthulhu or D&D, or what's on drive-through RPG, I'll roll the dice and pray they're nice. A critical I could